We begin with our profession of faith as always. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, so the first session, we talked about the Catholic baptismal view, okay, of education. Okay, but that is the second in the Baptismal Education Declaration of Catholic Education. That's number two. Number one is human education, because grace builds on nature. Grace builds on nature. And only insofar as nature is operative can grace work. Okay? So, although liturgy, sacraments, and prayer are essential to Catholic education, okay, that only works if we understand who the human person is. Okay? And I'm going to go through this citation from a Decree on Education. And then I'm going to go back and find out what a whole education is. And on the whole education, that's your first question. So when I go through that, I would like you to take those notes, okay, to make sure you're clear on what constitutes a whole education, a whole human education. Because if the whole human education is there, then the whole Christian education cannot work, or it'll only work insofar as whatever human capabilities have been developed. So you want to be clear about that. The human precedes the Catholic, okay? The human precedes the Catholic, okay? Because we're human before baptism came, okay? So it's our humanity, okay, that is essential in education. It's our humanity that's essential in education. And that's why education is universal, okay, because it conforms to human nature. Where Christian education, or Catholic education, is not universal in the sense that it only kind of applies to the baptized. Okay, where human nature, okay, applies to every person. So therefore, in all her social teachings, the Catholic Church begins with the human person. Always and everywhere begin with the human person. So as I mentioned in the last session, okay, the rights in education come from the child, not the parents. It's the child who has the rights. The parents have duties and obligations, okay, given the right of the child. And therefore they have rights, but their rights are based upon their duties and obligation, okay, to raise that child. It's the child that has the right. It's the person that has the right. That's innate into him. Okay, he has the right to a whole human education because he or she is a whole human person. And this whole business of specialization in particulars is what's really affected both Catholic education and in human education in a bad way. So young people, children, are not raised as a whole person. They're actually outweighed because they're strong in certain areas and they're not strong in other areas. They don't live a balanced whole life because the whole education has not addressed the whole person. So the church always begins with the human person. Always, always, always. Thus, it is only appropriate that this session confirm that a person is a free-willed, conscious being made in the image of a Trinitarian God who is love. And as such, every human being is social in nature. Every human being is called to love and to be loved. That's the first fundamental vocation of which education has to address. Okay, so you see that beginning of the education, you woman who rocked the cradle, okay, begins with your intimate relationship between your child and yourself from the moment of the womb. That's what that begins. And you all know that. So the Fathers of the Vatican Council stressed the necessity of a sound human education because without a sound human education, Catholic or Christian education does not work. So all men of every race, condition, and age, all men, that's men, nature, the nature man, including males and females, all men of every race, condition, and age, since they enjoy the dignity of a human being, since they enjoy that because that's who they are, and you can't change that, all you have is a state of becoming, they're going to become more human, okay, only insofar as they're developed, okay, but they already have their being. They have an inalienable right to an education. It's an inalienable right, okay, because that's part of their nature. They have a right. That is in keeping with the ultimate goal, their ability, their sex, their culture, and the tradition of their country. And also in harmony with their fraternal associations, again, with social in nature, with other peoples, and a fostering of true unity and peace on earth. For a true education aims at the formation I want you to pay attention to that word formation. Formation is instruction and training. Okay? And it's different than education. That is, education applies generally to the irrational faculties. But here we're talking about formation. The church uses the word formation. And that means instruction and training. So essential, for instance, in training is toilet training. That's part of their formation, so they can function as an adult. Yes, please. No, thank you. Stop interrupting. Take the fork out of your sister's eye. Okay. The training, okay? That's part of that. It's not just intellectual passing on 1 and 1 is 2. Sit up at the table. Stop interrupting. That's part of their education. It's part of their training. That's forming good social habits. Yeah, it's formation of the whole person. Formation of the whole person. So I'm going to go through these particularly. That's intellectually, morally, physically, socially, and then spiritually. Okay? I'm going to go through that at the end. Okay. Formation of the whole person in pursuit of his ultimate end. We're all meant for eternity. Everyone is meant for eternity. That's the way we're made. We came from God and we're going to return to God. So going to heaven is not simply religious education. That's part of human education. Because we're made in the image and likeness of God. And of the good of the societies in which as man, human nature, he is a member and in whose obligations as an adult he will share. So you're training your children from that little baby that just came out of Natalie's womb. Everything is aimed towards that person becoming an adult. They can stand on their own 2 feet, think for themselves, and have to be calling you every 5 minutes to find out if they can pick their nose or not. Okay? At some point, they have to become independent and stand on their own 2 feet. And that's part of your job. Who are the primary teachers? Who are the primary instructors? Who are the primary trainers? If anyone is the trainer, it's the mother. That's every single day of every single moment. Get your thumb out of your mouth. You're too old. At 23, you should not be sucking your thumb. Therefore, children and young people must be helped with the aid of the latest advances in psychology, in the arts and science of teaching, to develop harmoniously their physical, moral, intellectual, and we just mentioned social, physical, moral, intellectual endowments, so that they may gradually acquire a mature sense of responsibility. That is, you now are responsible, you're praying the kid to be responsible for his own life or her own life. That's what it means to be adult. In striving endlessly to form their own lives properly, form, you see the word form, that's instruct and train. In pursuing true freedom as they surmount the vicissitudes of life with courage and constancy. So part of growing up, part of that life is also the business of suffering and pain. That's part of life. And we mentioned that last time with the Holy Father's address to the families on Holy Family Sunday. That part of this deal is suffering. Suffering is part of human life. And they have to understand that. Okay? Let them be also given in advancing years a positive and prudent sexual education. Okay? And that's more than sexual functionality. Okay? Part of sexual education, okay, is the responsibility of self-discipline and selflessness in our sexual faculties. Okay. Moreover, they should be so trained to take part in social life so that properly instructed in the necessary and opportune skills, they can become actively involved in various community organizations. And that doesn't mean, like the Elks, any kind of social groupings, okay? And you people are very, very good at that, unlike when I grew up. You people are very, very good in developing a social life among you as parents and as families and other kids. And you have to be encouraged to continue that, okay, without watering it down and everyone becomes the same. But you're very, very strong in those areas. You're not strong in some other areas. I want to encourage you on that kind of sociability that you actually have. You have an organization, meaning by you have good friends. Okay, open to discourse with others, dialogue, and willing to do their best to promote the common good. This sacred synod, that is Vatican Council II, likewise declares that children and young people have a right, again, they have the rights, to be motivated to appraise moral values with a right conscience. And conscience has to be both informed and formed. Again, instruction and training. Instruction and training. The conscience has to be both informed and formed. Informed and formed. To embrace them with a personal adherence together with a deeper knowledge and love of God. Consequently, it earnestly entreats all those who hold a position of public authority to see to it that youth is never deprived of this sacred right. This is a sacred right because God is made in the image and likeness of God. So I have a right to have my conscience formed so that I know right from wrong. And therefore I can know what sin is. It further exhorts the sons of the church to give their attention with generosity to the entire field of education, having especially in mind the need of extending very soon the benefits of suitable education and training. See that, education and training, instruction and training. Formation is the big word. Two elements, instruction and training, or education and training. Always training, okay? I want to get into that in a minute, okay? So in the practical order of personal maturation, human beings need an integrated whole education in the moral and social virtues that are appropriate for a free-willed conscious being. So the first question we have there, what constitutes a whole education? Okay, so if you pick out your little pens and write it down, or cut yourself and write with your fingernail or do something, okay? So a whole education is there because there is a whole person. St. Paul says the human being is body, soul, and spirit. There are three elements: body, soul, and spirit. So the body, okay, excuse me, the body is your physical existence, your material existence. And that's part of the whole person, okay, part of the whole person. So one of the things with regard to the body, it's not only to maintain good health, you can teach them discipline through the body, because that's how you see how you act, okay? But the other thing you have to teach them, okay, and you know this is certain, okay, that the world does not center around them, okay, because the body is outward looking. It's not inward looking. You want to look at yourself, you have to get a mirror. It's an outward looking structure, which means we're meant for the other. We're meant for God. We're meant for our neighbor. That's why God can give the commandment, love God, your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole soul, love your neighbor as yourself, because we're made that way. We're not made to look at ourselves. The body is outward looking. Okay? So in one sense, the way we get to know a person first is through the body. The way love is experienced first is through the body. Okay? And that's why that intimate relationship between the mother and the child. The second thing is, the body is a barrier. Nobody can look inside me and I can't look inside you. So that means we're also meant for this personal, intimate relationship between God and myself. That's the same thing with the kid. You have to grow, you develop that in him, okay, by recognizing what the body is. It's a means of communication, but it's also a barrier. And that's why the conscience is so forming and conscience is so important, because that's how he's going to live, he or she is going to live interiorly in this relationship with God, because no one else is there. Okay? That's why unless you're really good at lying, okay, no one can find out whether you're lying or not. Except if you can't keep your eyes up, if you're blushing, okay, you turn white, or you're stammering and all that other stuff when you know you're lying. Okay, so the body gives those signs. Okay. So anyway, okay, I want to talk first of all about instruction and training. Instruction, okay, applies to the rational life. In the rational life, and I want you to pay attention to this because this is where you're, not you personally, but young people today are deficient, okay? It's not simply the mind or the intellect that you're training to know. There's also memory and imagination. Those are essential parts of a human education because they're part of our rational life, okay? Most people today, young people today, they can't remember, and they have no imagination. They sit in front of computers or the TV, they remain passive, they're not active. That's why reading the stories, they're talking all the time. That's what gets the imagination going. That's what allows them to memorize and to remember things. And you all know this, if you start with a little kid, 2 years old or whatever, and you read the story to them, they know that story is going into them. Pretty soon they know when to turn the page. And they can't read. but they know what it is. And so they say, read it again, read it again, read it again. So the kid is telling you, not only is this imagination working, and that's what really gives me a delight in the story, but now I have to develop my memory. So that's what the child is saying when do it again, do it again, do it again. So there's intellect, a rational life, there's memory, and there's imagination. Those are the three elements that all three have to be developed. And that's why reading the stories, talking, and all that stuff, and get away from the lousy TV and the computer and all these other technological gimmicks, because that does not allow the kid to develop fully. And that's why this is essential. And that's why I think the sucker trap today for young people is all the technology that's there that makes things so much easier. But you're not there for ease. You're there for a very serious obligation to have your child grow up as a fully human being. Okay. The second thing is the moral. Everyone has a conscience. Everyone has a conscience. We have a right to know right from wrong. Okay. And the conscience has to be both informed. It's not enough to say this is wrong or that's right, that's a sin, and blah, blah, blah. They have to be trained, okay, so that they know and have a sense, okay, of right and wrong so they can see it themselves. It's not a matter of just going into the mind. The conscience itself has to become working, okay. Conscience itself has to become active within them, okay, so that ultimately then they'll be able on their own to make right choices. So it's not enough to have the information, you've got to have the formation. And what is formation? Instruction and training. Right? No, you can't do that. That's wrong. You can't do that. Stop doing that. That's not right. I'm very glad that you offered your sister a cookie before you ate one. That's very good. I want you to keep up doing good things like that. Okay, so there's the intellectual, there's the moral, there's the social. We're social by nature. We're meant to love and to be loved. Okay? So we have the commandment, love God, your whole mind, love your neighbor as yourself. So there's three loves involved, God, neighbor, and self. You're trying to get the child to love himself first in the right way. Then he will be able to love God and be able to love neighbor. Okay? And then the fourth one, you're also very good at this, is to love a relationship with the created world. You're good at showing the beauty of snow and getting out to the, whatever, hug trees or whatever you people do, right? You're very good at that, okay? But we have to be taught, the kid has to be taught what true self-love is. Because they come into the world selfish, you all know that. They have to be trained to be selfless. And it's not that personally the kid is selfish. We're born that way because of original sin. Okay, then the fourth is the physical I mentioned, okay? The physical education, again, it's good health, good sleeping habits, okay? Good rest, good activity. It's also, excuse me, this business of being able to see correctly through the body. One of the problems you see in the church and all that thing, okay, the kid's body is out of control. They don't have the inner discipline of the will. So this is how you train the will. The will is free will, but it's got to be trained, okay? So that they can sit in church quietly, okay? They can sit in a conversation. They can walk right. They can sit right. They're not lounging all over the place, okay? So the first part of that training is through the body because that's what you see, what's inside. So if you see a kid in the thing, oh, that kid has no discipline. Okay, they're running around, they're yelling, screaming, they're crying, they interrupt, and blah, blah, blah. They're oblivious to everyone else. Okay. And I'm saying this now. You are the primary trainers. You are the primary. You're with that child every single moment of every single day from the time it is in your womb. And the primary way we begin with everything is a body. I can look out to you and I don't know your names, but I know you're you, and you're you because I see who you are. Okay? I also can see whether you're paying attention or not. Does drool come out of your mouth? Okay, she's not here. Okay? So we see those things. Okay? That's what we see in our bodies. Okay? And you're going to have to take that seriously. Okay? Okay, so and then finally this is the spiritual. So a body, soul, and spirit. It's that spiritual element that has to be cultivated. That's where we see that things are beautiful. That's where we sing, we'll be able to go to God, be able to see the other as not just an object for usefulness or for pleasure. Okay, we have that spirit, spiralis, to blow out. So Genesis says God created man. He breathed spirit into him. And he breathed spirit to him, he became fundamentally different than the plants and the animals. So in Genesis, they say plants and animals are living things. But man is a living being. He's a person. Just as we have three persons that make, in the Trinity, we're made in the image and likeness of God. We're person. And that whole person deserves a whole education, that matches up with his nature, human nature, okay? Body, soul, and spirit. So therefore you have intellectual, moral, social, physical, and spiritual. That's who we are. That's the totality of our being. But I want to emphasize again, your primary, in the early years now, we're talking about the kid comes out even when he's in the womb, or she's in the womb. Okay, it's this business of training, okay? It's business of training. And training means you have to face the reality of what human nature is, who the whole person is, in every element of life. So yes, you change the kids' tears with a kiss to smiles, okay? But see, the tears are there because suffering and pain is part of life. And they have to know that, and they have to understand, and you can't protect them from that. I mean, I'm not saying you inflict pain on them, but I'm just saying it'll come naturally, okay? Sometimes you have to inflict pain, as opposed to a timeout. But make sure there's plenty of padding, the diaper is there, when you hit them, and it's the noise that scares them. They aren't hurt, they're not painful, they're not going to die. I heard you people gabbing, and you're not an egg. Yeah. And that's where it applies. They're not an egg. They're a human being. Okay? All right, so that's a whole education. I'm going to begin. Formation is a key word. 2 elements, instruction and training. And then the whole person has a whole education. Intellectual, moral, physical, social, and spiritual. Okay, so you're training your kids in the faith, the liturgy, sacraments, and the prayer. That's only going to work insofar, okay, is that this human is developed. If the kid goes into church, doesn't know how to act or pray or anything else like that, and your home teaching, what are we doing here? There's no difference where I am. And there should be a difference when I go to church and when I'm down the supermarket. But even in the supermarket, you have to have the kid behave. It's a public setting. He's social in nature. And he should be acting like a human being with dignity and worth and value. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.